Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Myself Nishi Jain. I welcome you to the part 2 of 11 general principles of treatment of PNF, and we are going to cover principles from 6 to 11 in this video. So let's start. Sixth principle states that early motor behavior is characterized by spontaneous movement which oscillates between extremes of flexion and extension. According to this principle, in treatment it is important to attend to both directions of movement. When working with the patient on getting up from a chair, attention also must be given to sitting down. Often with an injury, the eccentric contraction is readily lost and becomes very difficult for the patient to regain. If not properly treated, the patient may be left with inadequate motor control to sit down smoothly and thus may drop into a chair. Seventh principle states that normal motor development has an orderly sequence but lacks a step-by-step quality. A child does not have perfect performance of one activity before beginning another more advanced activity. For example, if an ataxic patient is unable to write while sitting, it may be necessary to practice writing in a more supported posture. Another example is if the patient has not perfected a motor activity such as walking on level surfaces, he or she may be benefited from attempting a higher level activity such as walking up or down stairs, which in turn can improve ambulation on level surfaces also. Eighth principle states that normal movement and posture depends on synergism and balance interaction of antagonists. According to this principle, functional movement relies on a balance of reflex activity, flexor-extensor dominance and reversing movements. During treatment, imbalances among these factors are corrected to restore normal patterns of motion and postural responses. Ninth principle states that improvement in motor ability is dependent on motor learning. Motor learning is enhanced through use of multi-sensory inputs. Auditory, visual and tactile stimuli are used to progress learning. According to this principle, visual cues help coordinate and guide movement. Various tones of auditory cues may influence muscle reaction. Verbal cues influence the quality of patient's response. Tactile cues may provide direction and encouragement, and treatment that uses these multisensory inputs may optimize learning opportunities, thereby maximizing the patient's progress towards more complete functional ability. 10th principle states that frequency of stimulation and repetitive activity are used to promote and for retention of motor learning and for the development of strength and endurance. According to this principle, in the process of development, the infant constantly repeats a motor skill in many settings and developmental postures until it is mastered, as becomes apparent to anyone who watches the child learning to walk. Numerous attempts fail, but efforts are repeated until the skill is mastered. After the activity is learned, it becomes part of the child. Without the opportunity to practice, motor learning cannot successfully occur. It ultimately means that practice makes a man perfect. 11th principle states that goal-directed activities coupled with techniques of facilitation are used to improve learning of total patterns of walking and self-care activities. According to this principle, when applying facilitation techniques to self-care, the objective is to improve functional ability, but improvement is obtained by more than instruction and practice alone. Correction of deficiencies is accomplished by directly applying manual contacts and techniques to facilitate a desired response. In treatment, this approach may mean applying stretch to finger extensors or facilitate release of an object or providing joint approximation through the shoulders and pelvis of an ataxic patient to provide stability while washing dishes. Thanks for watching this video, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe.